I still can't believe what happened to Alex Nedeljkovic against the Flyers, but the Penguins brought this new physical brand of hockey that I could get used to seeing. A surprising player just got put on the trade block by the Pittsburgh Penguins, and Evgeni Malkin with a vintage performance, leading the Penguins to a much-needed victory over our in-state rival, the Philadelphia Flyers. That was the last game, and we have another game today, so that means another Penguins Digest video. Thank you guys for clicking on this video, and if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Penguins Digest. We cover the latest Pittsburgh Penguins rumors, news, updates, analysis, and today's video is going to be very fun because it's not very often that your starting goalie has a full-on meltdown in the middle of the game. Let's jump right in and start with goalie pool for some fuel. Mike Sullivan decided to really send a jolt through his team by taking Alex Nedeljkovic out of the game and letting Joel Blomqvist have the cage for the rest of the night, and he was lights out for the Penguins. So maybe some goalie questions here in the future. We're going to talk about that in just a second, but first, we got to talk about Ned, because Ned went crazy after he got pulled from the game, and everybody's talking about it. So, of course, we're going to talk about it here on Penguins Digest. First, I want to show you what Mike Sullivan had to say about Nedeljkovic following his yanking. So Sully said, I had no problem with Ned's reaction. For me, that's just an indication of how invested he is. He cares. He's competitive. He wants to win. That's raw emotion, and I have no problem with that. Quite honestly, I thought he inspired the group to want to compete for him. I thought our team responded, and Ned was a big part of it. So Sully gives all the credit to Ned in their comeback victory, being down 3 goals and beating the Flyers. Gino was the hero of the game, so let's hear from him about Alex Nedeljkovic. This is for the whole team. You know, his reaction, we understand. He's not happy, and we're not happy too. I'm glad I didn't break in my stick, you know, because I scored 2 goals after. But again, I'm mad too because we understand we weren't helping him for sure. So Gino, funny guy. Obviously, we all know that about Gino. He's a character. He's got a heck of a personality. Kind of came to Ned's aid on it. So Sully came to Ned's aid just like he did last game when the Penguins got absolutely shelled by the Flyers. He said, hey, Ned wasn't the problem. Give him confidence. Throw him in there the next game. And then he gets pulled. So then it's like kind of shaking his confidence just a little bit. Gives me a little bit of doubt. But hey, Sully's confident. Malkin's confident. Everybody's really said good things about Ned. And it's not really an issue I have with his character per se. I really do like Ned. I like how fired up he is, how passionate he is about the game of hockey, and how much he does care. It's like Sully said, it's really just him being invested in this team. But for the Penguins' long-term plans, I will say, I don't think Ned should be a part of that plan. And I know that he signed through next year, but for me personally, I think I would trade Ned. And I know a lot of you are going to probably turn the video off after I said that, but hear me out. Joel Blomqvist has been a guy that I've been very amazed at, but also disappointed in at the same time. He's been very inconsistent, but you have to expect that from a rookie. The thing is, throwing a guy into the fire and letting them see what they can do, and maybe throwing them in the ocean and seeing if they can swim is a better analogy. Joel Blomqvist has been given some pretty interesting opportunities and some pretty interesting spot starts for the Penguins, but this is the first time that he's faced real adversity. And I mean a game where we're down in a game that's pretty much must win because the Penguins hadn't won a game since the break. You can't lose another one. Okay, this is a game that the Penguins have to win. They're down 3 goals. They go to Blomqvist, and they basically say, you can't let in another goal. Now, he did let in 1. It was a tough one, though. Matvei Michkov was on his game last night. But Blomqvist played outstanding. And I think that was a sign of growth from him compared to even his last appearance, a sign of maturity and being unfazed and embracing the challenge and really just doing a great job. And I think if you're a goaltender or a former goaltender like myself or anybody that has any knowledge of the position at all, you have to have a lot of respect for what Joel Blomqvist did coming into that game for Alex Nedeljkovic. And the headlines right now are that Ned had a meltdown, slams his stick, yelling at coaches, and I'll show you the screenshot of him slamming the door. Mike Sullivan's obviously going to defend his player. Malkin's going to defend his teammate. But as an outsider looking in, for me, as a former player, as a former coach, Nedeljkovic didn't react the way I would want him to react. And here's why. Nedeljkovic is the veteran on this team. He is responsible for helping Blomqvist and whatever other young goalies come up develop and giving them an example of what they should do as a pro, as a veteran, as a gamer. Ned threw a hissy fit. Now, here's the problem. I would not be mad if he just walked down the bench, yelled in everybody's face, and tried to get everybody hyped up, started smacking Blomqvist on the pad saying, dude, it's you. Go, go, go. We got to win this game. I failed you guys. Let's do this. Let's win this game. Just get fired up. But to break your stick on the goal before you even go back to the bench, then to slam the door, almost catching Phil Tomasino's arm in the door, and then yelling at Mike Sullivan and the rest of the coaching staff. No. That is not how you handle the situation. And who are we to judge, right? As a player, as heated as things can get, as much energy and raw emotion, like Mike Sullivan called it, is in a game, you never really know how you're going to react to a situation. And it was just one of those days for Ned. He struggled, he got yanked, and he reacted. Can you really blame the guy for how he reacted? No, but at the same time, I'm very critical of Ned because of the situation he's in. He became the starter when Jari got sent down. He was like, we're like, you're the guy. You're the guy, Ned. And then we give him this mentor role. That is not the example that you set for our young goaltenders. So the reason why I say trade Ned, it's not because Ned's a bad goalie. He's very inconsistent, but who isn't? Problem I have is I want a leader. I want someone that's going to be composed. I don't want a hothead. So I don't mind the reaction. Reacting is fine. It's how he reacted that I'm not okay with, because there are a lot better ways to handle that situation. Who are we to judge how someone reacts? It's better to show some emotion than none at all. Ned needs to be better in those moments if he wants to be the guy. And he's not showing that he could be the guy if he's reacting like that to being pulled. Blomqvist went in there and was a brick wall, but I stand by my point that Ned should have kept himself under wraps a little bit better than he did. I'd like to see a little bit more self-control. I don't mind the emotion, but slamming the door, breaking your stick, that's child stuff. So I need Ned to be a little bit more mature and embrace this role of veteran goalie and mentor for Joel Blomqvist and the rest of our young goalies. And if he can't do that, which he's showing me that he can't, on top of not being a consistent enough goaltender to help us win games. Does that really matter at this point in time? Maybe not, because honestly, we're maybe trying to lose a couple games so we get a better draft pick at this point in the season. But throw Blomqvist in there. What do you have to lose at this point? Like, the dude is becoming more and more battle-tested, and the more experience you can get him, as long as Mike Sullivan goes to him and say, hey, you're not losing the job. You're not fighting for a job. You're still our guy. We just want to see what you got, and we're going to keep giving you these opportunities. That's what I want the Penguins to do. So it's a very curious situation to have Blomqvist and Ned, but I would personally trade Ned because of his team-friendly cap hit, because he can be a good backup, and I think there are teams out there that need goaltending desperately, and the Penguins have no need to hold on to this dude. Like, especially if he's going to do stuff like this, I think this might have hurt his trade value, but I would trade him. I really, really would. If any team comes to me and says, hey, we're interested in Ned, I would trade him in a heartbeat. I really would. Uptick in hits is a shift, and this is something that is not normal for the Pittsburgh Penguins. They normally don't hit people. They are a team that is bottom 7 in the National Hockey League in hits on average per game. They do not hit people nearly enough. Every game they're being outplayed from a physical standpoint, and they're like, again, one of the worst teams in the league at hitting people. Yesterday, they went insane and just started becoming human battering rams and just smacking flyers around and just dominating the game physically. And that eventually turned into them dominating the game in a lot of other ways too. Physicality becomes energy. Energy becomes scoring. It's crazy how that works, but for the Penguins, playing this brand of hockey that they're not used to, it actually looked pretty good on them. It's like trying on a new outfit and you don't know if it's going to look good on you, and then you look in the mirror like, wow, I think I could rock that. That was the Penguins last night. They tried a different thing. Mike Sullivan had the boys all jacked up, ready to go, Boko Imama was a big reason why. Man, he was a difference maker last night, and the Penguins out-hit the Flyers 36-20. Even in the first period, I think they had almost 20 hits in the first period, if I remember correctly. They were laying the body on these Flyers, and hey, the Flyers got discouraged at one point in that game. So the Penguins were able to assert their dominance and really show, hey, we can be a physical team if we want to be. And it looked good on them. It really did. Boko Imama, Brian Rust was laying the body around. I just liked it. I liked what I saw from the boys. So I'm really excited to see if they continue this brand of hockey because I think it fits them. I don't think they have a ton of players that can really play that kind of hockey, that style, especially if they trade guys like Noel Acciari. But that brings me into my next point, because that's really all I have to say is that I'm very proud of them for playing as physical as they did and having that translate to a win. But something crazy actually came in the news yesterday about a player that I didn't expect to be traded that might be traded, and he's one of the players that I kind of like as a bottom six type forward for this Pittsburgh Penguins team, and that's Blake Lizotte. So the question comes, Blake Lizotte getting chopped? Is he getting chopped? It's a great question because I didn't really see him as a player that would be expendable. Kyle Dubas really likes Blake Lizotte. He signed Blake Lizotte for a reason. He was injured, and then when he got here and actually started playing games, I think it was 8 goals in his first 20 games as the Penguins. So he's really cooled off offensively lately, but his line mates have been so inconsistent, and he was playing on a line with Acciari and Matt Nieto for a while. That was a decent line for the Penguins. Then it became not so decent, and then we just kind of lost faith in Nieto to the point where he got waived. So Lizotte's not really sure who he's playing with at any given time, but he's still a very solid bottom six forward for this team. And I would understand why other teams would be interested in him and making calls to Kyle Dubas saying, hey, is Blake Lizotte available? Because if Blake Lizotte's available and I'm a team that's trying to compete for a playoff spot or for a Stanley Cup, I'm looking at this dude and I'm saying, yeah, there's a lot he can bring to this team. He's one of those Energizer Bunny type players. He's a spark plug. He can go in there and be a catalyst, and he can create. Not necessarily offensively, but he's a great forechecker. He's physical. He can set guys up. He could score goals if he has to. He just does it all. I really like the type of player that Blake Lizotte is. He really is a jack of all trades, Swiss Army knife type player, if you will. And I just love what he brings to the table. I think it'd be a big mistake for the Penguins to get rid of him, but if the assets are there and the value is there, I guess you have to consider all options. And especially since you don't know who's going to be playing with him. I would put young guys on his line and let him kind of try to coax them into the NHL level and help them adjust to the new speed of play, because Blake Lizotte is one of those dudes, man. He's a gamer, man. Blake Lizotte's a gamer. I like his game a lot, and I like again, his energy is the most important thing. I think he brings the aspect that the Penguins players don't usually bring to the table. It's a rare energy that he has. Kind of reminds me of Brandon Tanev a little bit, who, of course, I would love to have back in Pittsburgh if that was possible, but he wasn't as much of a fit. And there it is, 8 goals in his first 20 games. And he hasn't produced, but you're not asking him, he's a fourth line center. Why are we asking a fourth line center to score goals? 8 in 20 games is insane for a fourth line center. And I don't care that he hasn't scored since then. He does so much other stuff for this team. And he has one of the most impressive plus minus ratings of anybody on this team, because most of our guys are in the minus teens and 20s, and Blake Lizotte's in the single digits. So at least he's not, giving up a ton of goals when he's out there on the ice in limited playing time. But bottom six center, he's cooled off. That's fine. I don't mind. But obviously Nieto leaving, and obviously Acciari maybe being on his way out as well kind of hurts Lizotte's kind of fit in this lineup, and we're not sure really what to do with him. I don't mind him being our fourth line center for young guys, like I just said a couple minutes ago, but is Mike Sullivan willing to do that? Is Kyle Dubas willing to keep guys on the roster? Is he willing to give guys a shot? It's really tough. And I do like Lizotte. I like the idea of keeping him. But again, if the assets are there, you have to at least consider it. He would be a depth upgrade. He'd be a big, boost in the bottom six for a lot of teams. Teams like Columbus that are trying to find a way into the playoffs. Teams like the Wild that are trying to compete for a Stanley Cup, have some injuries, maybe up the middle to the center position. It would make sense for the Penguins to keep Lizotte, but it would also make sense to trade him away if we're really going to rebuild. So he's one of those guys that's going to have value, and you can't trade everybody, but the guys that do have value, such as Blake Lizotte, it's a consideration. So seeing this article, it was like, please don't trade Blake Lizotte, but at the same time, I understand it. And there's been a lot of guys over the years I've been big fans of. Tanev's one of them. We let go. And is Lizotte going to be the next guy on that list? It's tough to see Crosby, Malkin, and Letang, and the longevity that they have, and the camaraderie of being together for this long, and then seeing all the pieces around them just never having any consistency at all the different teams that we've experienced over just the last few seasons, since we've been not really a playoff team anymore. It sucks. The amount of guys we've seen come through and come and go, and there's no real consistency with this roster anymore. And it's an adjustment, because we were used to seeing similar teams rolled out every season, and that's just not the case anymore. So last topic of the day is Gino, because Gino said enough is enough, and he put the team on his back in the third period and overtime. Evgeni Malkin looked vintage, guys. I mean, he looked vintage. If you guys watched that game, he got me all hyped up watching that game, because of Evgeni Malkin, man. Since he came back from injury, since we got back from the Four Nations face-off, this dude is different. I mean, he looks like he did at the beginning of the season, when I was like, okay, he's got a few more years, a little more gas left in the tank. And I'm starting to feel that way again about Gino after, what a performance by Gino. I mean, vintage Gino. 4-point game, 2 goals for the second half of our two-headed monster. Crosby and Malkin, at their age, still continue to lead the way, lead the charge for this team. Man, 4 points. I mean, that's awesome. I think he's third or fourth among active players now in 4-point games. He's up there in 4-point games. So he's continuing to climb the leaderboard, cement his legacy. One of the greatest players of all time, one of the greatest Penguins of all time. And there it is, 4-point night. Tied him with Tampa Bay's Nikita Kucherov, fourth most among active players with 31. Trails Ovi, McDavid, and Crosby. So Malkin and Crosby also made fresh NHL history, becoming the first duo to earn 400 wins when both record at least 1 point. So they were chasing that elusive 400. They hit that 400 against the Flyers. Who better? And it is an impressive achievement that Wayne Gretzky and Mark Messier and Alex Ovechkin with Nick Backstrom were unable to accomplish. So a huge feat for the Penguins' two-headed monster, continuing to cement themselves as one of the greatest duos in National Hockey League history. And we are just so blessed to be able to watch these guys on a daily basis for all these years. And this is fun, guys. I mean, seeing the team go out there and play inspired like they did after that goalie pull that really fueled our comeback attempt and beating the Flyers. That was so big. I'm not for tanking. Nobody wants to tank. You're not telling the players, hey, don't try. A win's a win. It still feels really good, and I'm so proud of the boys, especially Gino. Erik Karlsson looked like maybe he doesn't want to be traded in that game. So a lot of action in the next 8 days. I'm telling you guys right now. I think it's 7 days now until the trade deadline. It's going to be coming up on us pretty quickly, and Kyle Dubas is going to have to unload some pieces here. Is Karlsson going to go? Is Blake Lizotte now going to go? Is Achari still going to go, who we talked about? We talked about Grizzly being traded. There's a lot of options, and this team's going to look a whole lot different in a week and a half. I can promise you that. So Kyle Dubas is on the phones right now making moves, and in the moment they make a trade, I'll be right here ready to tell you guys all about it. So thank you for watching this episode of Penguins Digest. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and we will continue to provide daily Pittsburgh Penguins coverage. Let's go Pens, and we'll see you on the next episode.